All right, now please let me introduce our second speaker for today's event, the Group Chief Executive Officer of MSM Malaysia Holdings Berhad, Tuan Syed Faisal Syed Mohammed. Tuan Syed has over 34 years of experience in multinational and local conglomerate companies and over 12 years in C-level executive roles. He has served in various corporate and business sectors, including food production, engineering, and construction of oil and gas facilities, petrochemicals, as well as industrial process plants, exploration and production, infrastructure, and trading of agro-industrial commodities, and also hydrocarbons. His experience in various large of mega capital project conceptualization and developments span across several countries and regions, including Asia Pacific, South Asia, and also Middle East. Previously, Tuan Syed held several senior leadership positions as Chief Executive Officer, Executive Project Sponsor, and board roles, managing large organizations of over 3,000 people in Malaysia. He was also a senior member of executive committees overseeing more than 7,000 people in Asia Pacific, with over 15 subsidiaries across China, Southeast Asia, and Australia. Tuan Syed also as a member of Select Panel of Industry Advisory Panel to Malaysia Petroleum Resources Corporation under Pemandu. He is also an advocate of gender diversity through 30% Club, including male allyship and on climate action. So it's our pleasure to invite Tuan Syed Faisal Syed Mohammed with his presentation entitled Forging the Sustainability Shariah-ESG Voyage. Tuan Syed, the floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum, good morning. Thank you for having me this morning, Dr. Nani. Thank you for organizing and for Bursa for hosting us. I think that before we get into the topic of ESG and Sharia, I think I'll give you a bit of overview of MSM itself. Yeah. So we are close to a 60-year-old company. We started in 1964. So we started with MSM Prai, and then in 2018 we commissioned MSM Johor. Both have equal capacities, about 1 million ton each. And we have also a major center, supply chain center in Sungai Buloh. So these are the three operational centers of MSM. And we are based in Menara Felda, as far as the HQ is concerned. So we are under the Felda Group. So Felda owns about, we are a GLC. So Felda owns more than 51% of MSM. Of course, we have also Koperasi Felda. The holding of Felda is through FGV. Felda owns 82%, yeah, about 82% of FGV today. And Koperasi Felda is about 15.28%. And we have Amanah Raya Trustees, PNB, about 9.38%. We have also other shareholders. So other shareholders includes even the foreign shareholders. WII is Wilma International Investments. So total foreign shareholding is about 2.9%. So we export about 25% of our production. So we generate revenue. This is where we do our part to try to strengthen the ringgit as well. So we today our revenue, export revenues are about 700 million. We are exporting to 17 countries. Inshallah, we will be touching probably 1 billion ringgit by next year. So we've got the entire Asia Pacific where MSM sugar is distributed, and going as far as west all the way to Pakistan. Our next target would be the red box. Sorry. This one, Africa, which is now forecasted to have a 10 million ton deficit. So this will be our growth moving forward into the hyper growth region of Africa. So we are ranked with that capacity of combined capacity of 2 million tons. We are ranked number 8 in the world. So in the region, we have also good competition from people like Midpol Thailand, who is also expanding their footprint in Asia Pacific. You may have read Midpol made an acquisition of a refinery in Indonesia. So Wilmar is actually the number one player because it's not just about refining, they are also trading sugar. Combined volumes of trading and refining is about 13 million tons. So we produce, of course, the core is the coarse grain sugar and also fine sugars. And then we have a lot of varieties as well, icing, castor, and brown sugars. And I think the video you saw was Gula Super. So what is Gula Super? Some of you may have come across Gula Super. So there's a distinct set of specs that governs Gula Super. So it's like your RON 95 and your RON 97. Okay? So there's no trick to this. So this is international specs recognized. The organization is ICAMSA. So ICAMSA, based in Europe, so they are governing specs on sugar. I think that there wasn't enough to. I came in February 21. So this industry has not, let's say, matured in terms of sophistication in educating public about the governing specs of sugar. So, of course, with the challenges of prices of sugar staying flat. By the way, Dr. Nani, there's no subsidy on sugar. For 10 years, there's no subsidy on sugar. So it's a misconception. The one who is subsidizing the rakyat is the industry. MSM and CSR. MSM controls 70% of the market, CSR has 30%. There are some imports, but those are negligible. But generally, it's 70% MSM. So when you hear about subsidy, it is the industry who has been subsidizing the rakyat. So we have been back and forth Putrajaya fighting the case for nearly 29 months. Okay, 29 months to correct an anomaly in economics. We are the world's cheapest sugar. No exaggeration. The largest producer, the largest exporter is Brazil. You can Google, you can go see what's the price of a kilo of Brazil. You can convert the real, the Brazilian real, into ringgit terms, and you will see that they are much more expensive than your 2 ringgit 85 cents on the shelf. You're truly lucky. But I think it's time to strike a balance. Okay? Industry too needs to survive to be sustainable. We are in different era now. So last year, we were hit by hyperinflation. Our main material is raw sugar. Okay? Because we don't have sugarcane plantation, unlike Thailand or unlike Brazil. So we import raw sugar 100%. To the tune of, I think today our spending is about 2.5 billion or so ringgit. And this represents 80% of our costs. And when I came in, the raw sugar was at 13.5 US cents per pound. That's February 21. Today, it's 26 US cents per pound. Imagine your input cost, which is 80% of your cost, has doubled. Yet, the control price of government stays flat. Doesn't make sense. I'm talking about the consumer segment that we subsidize, which is about 35% of our total portfolio mix. The remaining is industry and exports. Those are not price controlled. So those are based on back-to-back New York 11. New York 11 is the raw sugar price plus the premium. Okay, so we can adjust the premium accordingly. But when you look at the consumer segment, the 1 kilogram, it has stayed static in the last 10 years, 2 ringgit 85 cents, with no adjustment and no subsidies. So it's time that, and I think finally we've got positive traction. I think we'll hear something next week on sugar. Okay, so finally, our 29 months effort will culminate in some adjustment. It's not price increase, it's price normalization. Okay, normalization in economics. When there's an anomaly, this is where Dr. Nani pointed out. We need to get all our imbalances correct. Get back to having a balanced approach in terms of prices, goods, and of course the running of the government itself in expenditures and so forth. So this is just one part of it. And when we talk about inflation, I've asked the government, what is the impact of sugar price to the CPI? I couldn't get an answer. It's all about optics. Oh, gula naik, sugar price naik, teh tarik naik. You know, you get this sort of an optics. But in actual fact, so in a meeting, they started to Google and look to see what was sugar as part of CPI. I don't know, maybe Hadi was there at the time also. The fact is, I think that we have to go back to data. Okay, administrators have to go back to data to really look and assess. So when an industry is suffering, you are, let's say, besieged by optics. I think that is wrong. You have to go back to data to really see what is the impact of sugar on CPI. A given household, how much sugar do you buy for your house? 1 kilogram. Once a month, right? Or maybe in 2 months. Even if it increases by 50 cents or 1 ringgit, that's your impact. But if you stay flat on the consumer side, the unintended consequence is we increase industry prices to stay sustainable. So condensed milk have increased in prices. Did you notice? Right? So that's the unintended consequence. Who buys the condensed milk? Consumers. So we had to educate the government on how to assess inflation. Okay, so meaning you just don't look at the consumer segment. You have to look at the total industry and where the condensed milk and other F&B products are purchased by consumers, all of us. Right? So when we increase or let's say normalize the price on the consumer segment, you will have at least lesser of a pressure to increase the industry prices. So less pressure on the consumers at the end of the chain, right? So that, in a nutshell, I wanted to share about where the sugar industry is and what will be corrected, I think, inshallah, next week. So of course, I won't go through much of all this, but we serve every segment, okay, including the hypermarkets, modern trades, industries, SMIs, big industries, and so forth. So these have been MSM share price movement. We had an AGM June 8, okay, slightly before. I met Dr. Nani in a function. I told Dr. Nani, good time. Today, MSM share price post AGM have gone at peak 78% from June 8 till now. Now it's about 135. I think today it's about 135. It's about 60 plus, 65% or so. But still, I think a good proposition. And as far as ESG, our team, Hadi, Fariza, Dr. Juliana, Anik, David, they're all here, working hard towards being a FTSE for Good index. We're not far. They'll join Farm Fresh soon. I think they have among the top 3 on the FTSE for Good. You know, so we like to aspire to be among the FTSE for Good. And also, I know it's a dynamic, it's something live, and to sustain that position of being an index. So we are not too far from that scoring. MSM, of course, have gone as high as 3 ringgit 58 cents. Maybe even 5, no, Hadi? I think, yeah, maybe even 5 ringgit. So we are working hard to bring back the glory days of MSM. But I've told the government, And we've been voicing out that it needs structural changes on the consumer side. We cannot be subsidizing the rakyat. From January until today, January of 22 till today, we have been subsidizing close to 300 million ringgit. That 300 million ringgit should have been from the budget of the government. But we are the ones, and CSR about 150. So industry, so when Prime Minister says that it is time to remove the subsidy, he is right. So that is where the structural adjustments will come in, inshallah. Okay, on Sharia, and not an expert of this, but I know roughly, as a Muslim, principles of maqasid. So this started, of course, it is within the divine, let's say, purpose of God onto mankind and all towards benefit. Maqasid means towards benefit, yeah, pathway to a benefit. Sharia, of course, being the compliance side, just to put it simply. And it was shaped, I would say, in the 11th century or giving it focus by Imam Ghazali. Okay, just to share a bit of history. And he was inspired by, of course, the writings of Al-Juwayni. You can read it up. So there's principles of protection of life, of course, faith, religion, intellect, property, and lineage. So in essence, Islam started that journey of ESG, giving it a structure. Just like, when did you hear ESG? When was the first time you heard about ESG? 20 years ago? 10 years ago? But it's been there all the while, right? So it's just that we have businesses, governments have put ESG into proper perspective, proper structure. Just so likewise, Islam's journey in putting ESG, the Maqasid Sharia, in perspective was, I would say, around the 11th century by Imam Ghazali. So these are the SDGs. I won't go through them, you know them very well. But what I'd like to say is that when you map the SDGs against the Sharia, there's a lot of common grounds, and there's really no real difference. Okay, I think you will have copies of this. You can go through them. So if you like, take the goal number 1, no poverty, zero hunger, good health, well-being. You can map it against preservation of life. Okay. So here is where there is distinct and as well as overlapping between ESG and Maqasid. And this is the S&P 1200. Okay, there's you can go and Google. I've quoted the source. You can go and Google this. And out of the 1200 S&P 1200, when they applied the ESG, only 700 plus made the cut. And when they applied Sharia, over 400 made the cut. Okay, so here there are common grounds, common views, but I would like to see also that the Sharia, I'm not sure, Sharia also starts to look at environment matters. I'm not the Sharia expert on the equity side, but I'm not clear if, for example, when you do Sharia assessment, whether you take environment into account. Perhaps someone can share that view after this. So I think I'd like to see, personally, Sharia expand into climate action and also environment. So you can see there are commonalities like even ESG and on the S&P, when they apply that standard, you can see tobacco, weapons, gambling are off the list. Yeah, so that's why I say there is more common ground between ESG and the Sharia. These are just some samples of areas, I would say, of where Islam and ESG intersects. Yeah, ethical investing, social responsibility, environmental stewardship, corporate governance, sustainable investments. You can go through them in the deck. So our journey. So we have started to look at material matters to prioritize. Governance, ethics, of course, is foremost. Financial management, occupational health and safety, economic impact, human rights, fair labor and all that. Traceability in terms of sourcing and supply chain management. So today, for example, our raw sugars are all 100% sustainable, meaning traceability is 100%. So we work with Wilma, and we have a logo that represents that. It's called NDPE, right? And that is on every pack of MSM sugar. Then, of course, data waste management. So waste management, we have also reached circularity on some of our waste. So, for example, mud cakes, what we call mud cakes, those are calcium carbonate alkali-based waste that generates from the refineries. We have been disposing them. So then I asked the team, send me the chemical composition of that mud cake. I said, why are we just disposing it? And also we had issues with availability of landfills in Prai. So looking at it, if you don't spend time to give waste an opportunity, it will just be a waste. But when you look at the granularity of it, there will be an opportunity. Yeah, this is where I encourage. So something that we have been traditionally just disposing on landfills. So when I looked at the chemicals, I said, look, my chemistry is not too bad. This is alkali base. Surely it must be good for soil. It's non-toxic. So true enough, we started to look into it, and then with nafas and all, it went as fertilizer. So fertilizer is a green, I would say, initiative, green application. Then it started to go into building materials with SIMA, and now even into animal feed. So we have achieved 100% circularity on our mud cakes. So we've got a few other ways which we are looking closely, and I'm sure we'll find some good use for it. So our target is to go 100% circular in terms of waste management. Employee engagement, of course, it's always one of the core values is people first. So we in MSM, we ensure that it's not just something that we say. We have to live by when we talk about people first. And I think it's important for corporate to understand that people are at the heart of companies. So, for example, we have even a cancer-stricken security guard in Perlis. So when we had to dispose Perlis, then we learn about his case. Who is going to employ him? Who's going to employ him if we abandon him? Okay? So, of course, by way of HR policy, we cannot be employing him. He's done his service. Insurance can only take him so much. But we decided, dalam what I would say in Malay, satu hati, to make sure that he is taken care. So today, that cancer-stricken security guard, bedridden, is on our employment. Okay? And I and the other management stand behind that decision. So that is where example of a demonstration of people first. So it's not just about giving benefits and bonus. At times or when your employee, your employees need you, you should be there. Okay, and just one point on diversity. I think DEI is important. MSM is part of the 30% club, and also we are championing gender equity. So I believe women are just as qualified and should be given the right justice in terms of position. So remove all the biasness, and you will unlock further potential in the company when you cast your net wider in securing talents. So we are part of 30% club, as I mentioned, and we are promoting that cause. And it is a charter. It is a charter in MSM, and that we promote diversity, celebrate diversity. And this is also part of, I would say, Sharia. There is an ayat, I forget which surah, but talks about diversity. And that God wants you to also recognize diversity. And when you recognize diversity, you will see the glory of God. Okay? There is a clear ayat celebrating diversity. So, this is in line with Maqasid Sharia as well. So, these are some of the things that we do in MSM. And then you can see in the deck later, we map it across both SDG and the Sharia. So integrity, of course, is one of them. The other is of course, you have to manage your finances. Okay, so financial management is key. That's why we've been arguing with government. Regardless, we've been arguing, for many months. But we got to make sure it's financially sustainable. Yeah. So we stayed resilient last year, despite a challenging year. We made profit in 21, but we made losses in 22 simply because of, as I mentioned, of all the input costs, the raw sugar, the gas prices, by the way, freight, and also the weakening of the ringgit. But we will recover back this year, inshallah. And moving on, it'll be a sustainable MSM. So as mentioned also, we won the safety award. Alhamdulillah, we worked hard. So safety. When I came from the oil and gas industry. So we are always at the razor end of the spectrum of safety. So there's no compromise in terms of safety. And my induction in terms of safety came from that oil and gas exposure. So when I came into MSM, the first thing I did on February 1 was to look at the safety of MSM. Because sugar is also a dangerous product. It may look sweet and harmless. But again, I like to look at chemistry. So I look at the molecules. First thing I did, I look at the molecules. And I saw, oh my God, this is similar to what I'm seeing in the oil and gas. And true enough, I did a bit more research and I looked at plant disasters. It can really scare you. Right? So never to take things for granted. My first call of course, HR onboarded me, but my first call to an employee in MSM, I did not even call the CFO. I did not even call my chief operating officer. Neither did I call Hadi. My first call was to the head of safety in MSM Prai, Mr. Vignes. No, sorry, he was in Johor. I asked HR to give me the 3 names of our safety managers. And I wanted a quick telephone call with them. So Mr. Vignes was one. I think that there were previously 2 other guys, now got changed out. Okay. So that was my first call to MSM, sending the signal that safety will be the utmost priority. Right? And what in most organizations, you always find safety as the last agenda. It's like a by the way kind of thing, when you have time. And the poor safety manager will be waiting for his turn, and everybody will be eating up into his time, right? And then he'll be rushing through, and nobody will be paying attention. Change that. Okay? Change that. Why? Because then you will have a different mindset of employees. When you have a different mindset of employees, what happens? The dividends will come from that change of mindset onto productivity. If you care about safety, you will care about how you are also working. You will see that latent effect. Okay? So put it as a number 1 agenda. We have executive committee meetings. And for example, even at top management, first item we discuss is safety. No matter how long or short, it starts with safety. You can do that even at department levels. Right? Finance may say, what have you got to do with safety? Right? A finance department meeting. But you can share a safety moment. Okay? You can talk about safety moment, whether it's health or whether it's occupational issues that you've heard this and that. But you can do that. That's just to induct the mindset. So Again, this is on the supply chain, as I mentioned, and we want to get to net zero. But how do you get to net zero? You got to ensure that the scope 3 are also, let's say, accounted for. We can manage scope 1 and scope 2 to get to carbon neutral. Today, I would say we are about 84% of our carbon emissions are recycled. So we've got another 16%. So 16% on scope 1 and scope 2. But to get to net zero, you need to get the scope 3 involved. So this is all your supply chain, vendors and suppliers. That's the challenge that I think every corporate is facing right now. But things can be done. So that's why I hope that SMEs who represent most of our suppliers and vendors play a key role or get inducted into the ESG agenda. They need to contribute. So government must have also a strategy, and corporates like us also, we do induction. We try to share ESG practices with all suppliers and vendors. I think this is super important. Otherwise, how do you get to net zero if the SMEs or if your supply chain doesn't pay attention to it? So you must understand the distinction between carbon neutral, which you can control as scope 1, scope 2. Scope 1 being direct emissions from your let's say direct activities, and scope 2 being let's say if you buy energy or gas, let's say Tenaga Nasional or Petronas. Okay, those are examples of scope 2. Okay. Data security, of course, that's also part of MSM's focus. Waste management, as I mentioned, going circular. Operational performance. So we also have to, how do you get revenues? Okay, working backwards, you got to ensure your plants are at the optimum utilization factors, UFs. So we have matured, let's say, UFs in Prai, but we are underutilized in Johor. So Johor has had its technical issues started in 2018, but we have now worked hard and mitigate completely Johor today. So as of May of this year, where the boilers, because steam is at the heart of a refinery, so we have already mitigated the boilers. Okay, so now Johor has unrestrained capacity. So our target now is to ramp up Johor. Some of you are maybe participating in our analyst call, so you know what I mean when I say that we have to ramp up Johor. Employee engagement, so it's important to always, as I said, it's part of people first, right? Okay, economic impact. Yeah, so we play a role when it's a healthy MSM, at least we are able to have social, public, and also national impact. So in 21, we paid corporate tax, 44 million ringgit. But in 22, with no government intervention, despite all our input costs, what do? We paid no corporate tax. So there is a benefit of a healthy MSM, and the government needs to recognize. So that is where, when we talk about price adjustments, similarly to, I think, our other consumer friends, whether it's chicken, oil, egg, and oil, I think everybody faces input cost issues. And I think this is where government needs to find a clever balance between consumer spending or consumer, let's say, inflation to addressing industry needs. And also we paid to Wakaf Felda. So Wakaf being part of the RMK 12 blueprint and Felda being the second JLC to have a Wakaf, we were among the early contributors. And that we could do because of 21 results. And we hope to resume that. So this is also part of upholding human rights and labor standards. So we will have also working towards FLA, Fair Labor Assessments. We are not as sensitive as the plantation side, although FGV and FELDA and all are more sensitive to that. But here we have still some foreign workers. We have 1,600 employees, of which about 600 are contract workers, and 30% of that are foreigners. So that makes about 180, 200 people. So we have Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, and all to manage. But so far, it looks okay. But not taking things for granted, we go down to audit. And our customers, like Coca-Cola or Nestle's and all, they also insist. So to get to a Coca-Cola, let's say, accreditation, of which, by the way, both PRI and Johor recently being onboarded by Coke, and Coke is the highest sugar standard in the world. And happy to say that Johor today has been onboarded by Coke. And part of that onboarding includes also labor practices. So this is the sustainable raw sugar that I mentioned earlier. So we work with Wilma on this program. Okay, product quality. So by the way, Gula Prai has the third highest household penetration after Maggi and Milo. Third consecutive year by this data insights company, UK-based, Kanta. Right? So proud to say that we have close to 70% household penetration on the survey of about 8 million households. Maggi, for example, I think is about slightly less than 90%. They used to be about 92, now it's about 89%. And then comes Milo somewhere in between. So we aspire to try to chase Maggi and Milo, and we have a strategy by widening our touch points, distribution channels. So we are working hard on that. Yeah, so on business development and product quality, so when we are certified, we are not just certified to all this that you know in terms of food safety, HACCP, and so forth, GMPs, but we are also certified by our customers. So today we are primary supplier, MSM is primary supplier to Coke, not just in Malaysia, but we won a tender in 2021 from 10 bidders because we extended our relationship being in Malaysia into Asia Pacific. So we were invited among 10 bidders, and Manhattan, US, selected MSM over 4 Thai companies, 1 or 2 Indonesians, and global trade houses. So it shows the MSM quality in producing premium, let's say, sugars, fine sugars for the Coke industry. Talent management. So I think this is important. Probably you can see the text there. But you know, we've got to recognize that talent. Don't be afraid about successes. Okay, successes are there to ensure sustainability, and we've got to groom and ensure. In case you are not there one day, someone would be able to carry the organization or the department forward. Never have that feeling or that thought of someone replacing your job. Because one of your successes, one of your keys, success factors would be development of the young talent, the future leaders. And that's super important. Water, part of resource management. So this is important. You know, water is getting more and more scarce. So as an industry, we are sensitive to this. Okay, as I mentioned, DEI, diversity. So across all measures, in terms of let's say women on the board, that's today we are about 33% of women directors. In executive management, I think we are close to about 40%, and we'll grow that number. And even in terms of executives, we are higher than 30%. Certainly, we are about, I think, 47%. Okay, so taking Sharia further, so I came across this article. So I think more and more I resonate with this, and I believe that it has to be driven more by the investment community rather than the regulators. Right? So I think this will evolve. And as mentioned, I'd like to reiterate, I would like to see the expansion of Sharia to include environment and climate action. Okay, and this is where Islamic thinking needs to expand beyond the usual traditions. So Islam is not static, Islam is dynamic. So things evolve. So likewise, Sharia thinking needs to evolve. These are some of the companies, and we hope to aspire to become amongst this group. Okay, so this is the last part. So sustainability has to be at the heart of your operations, and with sustainability, I think you have a better chance of growth and profits. And it's profit, people, and planet. So profit for people and planet. Don't just, some companies are just looking at from. So it's not profit from people and planet. That can mean also lead to exploitation. So this is where sustainability thinking needs to come in and balance it out. And I think that you will have a better chance moving forward. So thank you. I don't know if I take questions now or.
Yes, certainly. So we open for our Q&A session with MSM. So if anybody from the floor, if you have a question, please raise your hand and we will pass the mic to you.
Assalamualaikum Tuan Syed.
Waalaikumsalam.
Just have some burning question to ask. Makasih Shariah is also do no harm.
Yes, correct.
Given that normalizing sugar price could be imminent, for economy and for ummah, which one is better? Let's go for the economy first. Is it better subsidy or naik harga? Or for the ummah, which one? And for the MSM, which one? Which option is better for each?
I think next week the government is going to go through exactly what you said, the option. These two options. Either actually subsidizing, taking over industry, subsidizing sugar, or increasing it a bit. My opinion is, an industry opinion, is that allow some form of price increase. Why? Because then we don't need to burden the government. Okay? So if it's a 500 million subsidy, that 500 million can be put to other positive users. So when you spread the cost increase of sugar, as I gave an example, if it were to be 50 cents or 1 ringgit, it's not really hurtful because it's not your day-to-day commodity. Right? Like flour. Have you noticed what's the price of flour? Anybody? 4 ringgit, yeah. Have you seen that the 150 flour is no longer in market? As of May last year, May 22. Yeah? So, because why no consumer made any noise about flour? How often do you buy flour? Saya ni tukang beli lah flour for my house. When I push the trolley in the Aeons and all that, I remember it's only like once a month, right? You don't buy, it's not like chicken oil egg. Chicken oil egg is more sensitive. So I think this is where there's no need for government to subsidize. Take that money and put it to better use. And it doesn't have to be just for let's say, food commodities. They can do it for other let's say, positive, let's say, users. Maybe the non-food side may need assistance. What about schooling? What about education? Better schools, right? I would rather to see children educated, given better facilities, with 500 million, than to subsidize sugar, right? With 500 million, how much can you do for education? A lot, right? So why that sort of thinking is needed. Okay, so why do we need to subsidize sugar? Tak payah lah. Kan? And also we've got 3.9 million diabetics. On the one hand, it's costing us a lot in medical costs, right? So, and here, do we want to stay world's cheapest sugar? Kan? Gula price slipping through the borders. Even Singaporeans are buying. Johor, Pasir Gudang, hari tu shortage. These shortages are not because MSM is not producing. Some of the sugars are slipping through the borders, our porous borders. We sent a team of 2 managers to Kalimantan, more on the Sabah side, and we found gula prai on the shelves of Kalimantan, from small stores to the supermarkets. Yeah. I'm sure it's across in Thailand, and I'm sure it's in Philippines. By the way, Philippines is the most expensive, 9 ringgit per kilo. Okay, that's why some housemates, when they go back for holidays, they pack a lot of gula in their bags and they go back to Philippines. Okay, it's 9 ringgit. So I think price adjustment will not harm the consumers, right? And also that it's all about consumption. How many spoons of sugar do you use in a day, right? You eat more rice. I think the government has to probably be more sensitive towards rice, right? Those are the areas of real impact, right? Sugar, and I've asked the question to government, what is the impact of sugar onto CPI, right? They couldn't give me the answer. And they tried to Google. And I said, don't bother, I can tell you. Okay, it's 0.00 something. Okay, it's a no-brainer. Okay, so why be optically so sensitive about it? I said, no government have been overthrown because of rise of sugar price. Right? If any government has overthrown, you would have seen action in Philippines and Indonesia. Indonesia is 4 ringgit 50 cents per kilo, and for a lower quality. You go to social media, you can see Indonesians putting up gula prai and saying, hey, cheaper and better quality. Right? So why are we, when we stay suppressed, we are at least subsidizing ASEAN. Okay? So there is an ecosystem that is exploiting our low prices. So my opinion, Dr. Nani, to your question, better to adjust the price and take the subsidy to better positive use.
I think if you ask equity market, I would rather price to be normalized. Satu, we not burden OPEX government. Dua, you get more tax
Yeah, exactly.
Contribution. Tiga, kurang diabetic.
Yeah.
Then, all in all is good for the government lah.
I'm going to nominate Dr. Nani to the EPU.
Having said that, CSR also in line
yes,
with
yes. We act in concert as a joint industry. Of course, we being the bigger player with 2 million tons. So I'm like we don't have a formal association. We just call it a joint industry. So I'm like the leader of that industry. CSR is producing about 600,000 tons. So I think that's okay. I think don't have to be afraid about. And also, by the way, diabetes. Sugar gets the easy blame lah. But go to the KKM website. There's a literature on diabetes. See in the packing order of attributes. Okay, sugar is not number 1. There's carbohydrates, there's fats, lifestyle, and then comes sugar. You consume more carbs and fats in a day. Then you may skip a spoon of coffee, or let's say a spoon of sugar in your coffee in the morning. Maybe you feel psychologically good about it. What do you do during lunch? Your nasi. Datang dessert pula. And then for the durian lovers, during weekends, durian. So I think you have to pay attention to more of that, and also the lifestyle. You need movement, active lifestyle a bit, so that you burn your sugars. That's why construction workers, they can consume. Yang Bangladesh, they can consume a lot of sugar, no issues. Because they are always burning energy, right? So there is this misconception about sugar equals diabetes. Wrong. It's just that carbohydrates or even dairy products, from fresh, sorry, even dairy products or whatever, gets converted into sugar. And then if you don't burn it, then it gets stored. Then this is where the problem starts. And so it's all about consumption. Okay?
All right.
Any other questions?
Any other question? Okay, we have one.
Hello, Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Hi, my name is Zaid. So I have two questions. Number one, basically you mentioned just now that you look forward to the ESG screening to be part or integrated into the Sharia screening lah. So if let's say in the future ahead, the regulators or to be specific SC or BUSA to be truly implement of this ESG screening, to be part of the Sharia screening to gain the Sharia compliance status. So my question is how huge or how big the impact and significant it is to MSM Holdings, considering the fact that number one, it is a public listed company. Second, currently is a Sharia compliant company, securities. And third, considering also the fact that I'm not sure your company involved with the production based like plastic, something like that, the calculation on the ESG part, will that be a very huge impact or significant impact to your company to maintain the Sharia compliance status if it is truly to be implemented in the future? Can I just proceed with the second question?
Sure.
So my second question is just now, also we all know that MSM is a Sharia, publicly Sharia compliant securities. So how do you see as a person or the CEO of the company having this Sharia compliant status? Is it truly benefit MSM Holding as a whole? Or actually, regardless whether it is a Sharia or non-Sharia, is not actually truly matters to the company? So that's my two questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So to answer your first question, we have already embedded ESG in all aspects into MSM. Of course, there are some areas still to work upon, but we are not shying away, and we want to do it. Don't view ESG as compliance, and I've always say this in a lot of gatherings and all. Just view it as the right thing to do. Take that approach. So even CFOs need to understand that there are dividends, there are benefits out of this. So even I've demonstrated to a CFO that look, it's not a cost. When you take the management of waste, we were spending something like 10 to 12 million ringgit a year because the cost of transportation was high on the waste to those landfills. But when we put an ESG cap thinking cap on management moving towards a circular economy, today we are spending only about 2 to 3 million ringgit. Okay, there's still a bit of transportation costs, and we are going to get to net zero soon. So this is where ESG is not a cost. If you view ESG as a cost, you will have no chance. And this is where management and the board as well needs to get educated and to understand that there are tremendous benefits in having ESG, sustainability as at the core of your business and your thinking and your implementation. So this is where your growth. See, now that we save 6, 7 million or even 8 million ringgit, we can put that sort of money to better use. Expand the company, run the operations, capex projects, right? So this is how you have to view sustainability. Of course, those packaging requirements will come in, which we are also looking at, right? But every aspect of the ESG will take its course, right? So hopefully I answered to your first question. Now on the second question, I think that we should be proud whether you want to claim ESG or Sharia. doesn't matter. But as I've shown, that they overlap. To me, really, there's no difference. I think Sharia will evolve. Okay, Sharia will evolve, and you will have moving toward singularity. So singularity of the two, where there will be probably no distinction between ESG or Sharia. And I hope that that day will come, right? So all the Sharia experts, I don't know if some of you are here, you need to start to put your thinking caps to expand. Like I said, Islam is not static, Islam is dynamic, right? So grow that Sharia aspect. That singularity comes one day between ESG and Sharia. It's like the S&P 1200 that I showed you. Applying the ESG, you've got over 700 companies. Applying Sharia, you got over 400 companies qualified. So I think that, so to answer your question, be proud of it and insist on it. Okay, as a CEO, one day you may be a CEO. Okay, I hope so. Insist on it. Okay. Yeah.
Sugar consumption in Malaysia is one of the highest in this region. Do you see there's a need to encourage people to consume less, right, as part of the ESG, given that it's healthier not to consume so much of sugar? And where do you see the potential of having higher sugar tax to discourage people from consuming more? And how would that impact your volume sales? I mean, this is domestic. Of course, you can always like export out, you know, whatever extras that you have.
So, okay, yeah, it's a common question being asked even at some analyst briefing or media briefing. So, the Malaysia, you know, is Malaysia boleh lah, Malaysia champion. And on the scale of per capita, Malaysia is number one in Asia Pacific, followed by Australia and New Zealand. At the end of the spectrum is Vietnam, and next to Vietnam is China. In between is Indonesia and Philippines, Laos, and Cambodia and all. So last data I think was around 46 kilograms, but this includes the industries, the export industries, right? Malaysia is a big exporter of let's say condensed milk, the largest exporter of condensed milk. But you take just the consumer side, I think that sugar tax, to my view, to industry view, doesn't really work. Okay, so it's only hurting the industries. Formulations will change. Okay, the industries are clever people. Formulations will change. Okay, I think what needs to be done is more on really changing here. Okay, so I'm sure none of you really were aware of when I said on the pecking order of attributes. Some of you may not have been aware, because the propaganda today is sugar equals diabetes, right? That's totally wrong, right? So I think that it has to start, and it has to start in the even at the young in schools. So that sort of propagation is needed, right, to have a long-lasting impact. It's like now they are treating smoking and so forth and all that. So I think that we need the public to understand, and I think this is where government has to play that role in spending more money in educating and creating awareness. I don't know how much have you seen government creating awareness on you need to be having active lifestyle. Ada, Dr. Nani? Okay, where? Do you see any impactful campaigns? Right? They have to keep drumming this in society. It'll have to be like an ad, an advertisement. Okay, keep pushing that propaganda. You have to have active lifestyle. Okay, when you push those sort of things, then you will see lesser of an issue. Right? So even if someone is consuming sugar or carbohydrates or fats, that's all converted into sugar in the body. But when someone is having active lifestyle, there's less of an issue. The problem is when you're too much on video games, especially the young these days, right? video games, handphones, and all that, TV, Netflix, being on the couch. This is where the problem starts. Okay, so I think I would say I would spend more resources on education. Sugar tax is just killing the industry. Even now, they're trying to implement tax onto the ingredients. It's going to hurt the industry, right? So how competitive are we going to be when we export? Right? So FMM, the Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers, they also have raised that concern. Okay? So I think that government has to relook on really what is the issue and how to tackle it. That's our opinion. Just saying sugar tax is not going to. I know it was like 2019. I think they implemented the sugar tax. But what impact has that been? Have you seen the diabetes reducing? Have you seen people consuming less? Right? So industries will adjust, consumers will consume. Right? But your problem of whether active lifestyle is still there. Right?
What if the government, I mean, you say that they may announce something soon, but what if it doesn't happen? What would be your strategy to going forward to sustain this?
Not to preempt, but of course, we are prepared for eventualities. But it's not going to be easy, but we still would be able to stay resilient. However, having that said, I don't think that situation will, let's say, it's not going to be a perennial situation. Okay, there must be some address of it. Maybe what may happen is if it gets a little bit more dragged on. Okay, but at some point there must be some adjustment, because otherwise you may face an industry that may say one day, okay, if shareholders decide, let's stop producing. Okay, let's produce something else. Right? So, are you going to rely on imports? Import is not a solution. And by the way, if you all have voices out here, government should be reducing imports. Okay, it's ringgit to circulate more in the economy rather than having leakages. Right? If we have the opportunity to reduce imports, we have to reduce it, and that will help the ringgit. Because sometimes, while we say we want to strengthen ringgit, but you hear the language of, import is the solution. But that's completely wrong. You are destroying the value of the ringgit by doing that. Right? So I think that strategy that needs to be looked at holistically. Okay. Any other questions?
All right. I believe that we can close our session for Q&A for now. If anybody have any further question, I believe that Tuan Syed will be open for discussion later on.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tuan Syed. Okay.